So we're going to be talking about Pikmin Bloom in this video. I know a lot of you guys play Pokemon Go. You probably don't care about Pikmin Bloom. Maybe you tried it once and dropped it. But even if you don't plan to ever touch it again, this game could affect the future of all AR games. And I'm going to tell you why. But let's pull back for a second and think big picture. The important question on everyone's mind is Pikmin Bloom going to die? Yes. Yes, it will die. But also, Pokemon Go is going to die. Every online game kind of dies at some point. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Pokemon Go is going to die anytime soon. I think that series is like a deep well of like new Pokemon, new shinies, costume Pokemon. And you know they're probably going to be drip feeding us all of that very slowly over the next 5 years. There was even an article floating around that said Niantic had a 10 to 15 year plan for Pokemon Go at least. I'll leave it up to you to decide if you think that's like a realistic timeline. I don't know if it's going to last that long, but I'm sure by then we'll have Pokemon Go 2, or the game will just be a different game at that point. But yeah, I'm not convinced Pikmin Bloom is even going to survive the next few years, unless it gets some pretty substantial like feature upgrades and overhauls. And you might be sitting there as a Pokemon Go player wondering, why should I care if Pikmin Bloom lives or dies? And the simple answer to that is anything that affects Niantic as a company is going to affect all of their games. Right? So if something works really well in one game, there's a pretty good chance it's going to show up in the other games, or at least in new games that come out. Not to mention, all of these AR games are sharing the same like data ecosystem, right? They're all based on Niantic's geographic data of the world. So they're very interconnected. You know, friends lists carry over between games. We've got things like Campfire now, which are game agnostic. You know, you can toggle on different points of interest from different games. So you could make the argument that the more familiar you are with all of Niantic's games, the better sense you have of like where they're going in the future, or what maybe their new projects will prioritize. Even just things like monetization, like how they're going to handle their free-to-play mechanics. That's something in Pikmin Bloom that you might want to brace yourself for. So lucky for you, I've actually played most of Niantic's games, even Ingress, their first one. It hasn't aged that well. It was great back in the day because it was the only way to submit Pokestops in the game, but I'm not going to talk too much about Ingress. Don't worry. I'm here to play the games you don't want to, all right? I'm here to collect all the little knowledge nuggets and share them with you. And playing Pikmin Bloom, I think I've found quite a few. But to help you understand the context of like why I think these things are important, I'm going to have to explain how the game actually works. And again, I'm going to be talking about a lot of this stuff in terms of Pokemon Go, which I think more people are familiar with. So if you haven't played Pokemon Go, stop lying. Of course you've played Pokemon Go. At least a little bit. You played it for like a day at least when it was popular. First up, let's talk about gameplay. What do you actually do in Pikmin Bloom? This might not be shocking to you based on the name of the game, but it's like 80% focused on flowers. Planting flowers, blooming flowers, collecting rare types of flowers. Everything you do in the game, even down to like the reason why you're growing this Pikmin squad, is just so you can grow more flowers faster and better. And then, yeah, of course there's Pikmin too. As you explore, you find these little seedlings that you can plant, and as you walk around, they'll sprout into new Pikmin. As you get to higher levels in the game, which you achieve by walking, because your steps are your XP in this game, you'll unlock new Pikmin with new abilities, up to 7 different types. But in general, the bigger and more diverse your squad is, the better equipped you are to harvest the most important resource in the game, which is nectar. So the simplest way this starts is as you walk around with your Pikmin, they'll automatically pick up these little fruits that you can turn into nectar. And once you feed that nectar back to the Pikmin, they'll produce flower petals. Once you have enough petals, then you can start planting flowers. This functions kind of like incense in Pokemon Go, except it uses petals as a resource. So while you're planting flowers, you'll see a trail of flowers spawning beneath your feet as you walk through your town, and the flowers will stop spawning if you run out of petals. The more Pikmin in your squad, the faster these petals get used up. All players can see the flowers you've planted. You can even show your character location by flipping this switch, and anybody else with the switch on can see where you are in game, which is kind of an interesting / worrisome privacy feature. There's not many AR games that actually let you see other players, like, you know, it's an MMO or something. And maybe for you, there's some aesthetic value in just spray painting your town with various colors of flowers, but there is actually a gameplay reason why you do it. And that is, it's the only way to get the game's premium currency. And again, we'll talk about monetization in the next section, but just know that to make money in this game, you have to plant a ton of flowers. And much like incense from Pokemon Go, if you're not constantly moving while planting flowers, you're not going to be doing it very efficiently. You're going to waste a lot of your petals, and you're not going to make that many coins at the end of your planting session. So yeah, planting flowers takes up a ton of resources. And where do you get resources and items in Pokemon Go? From Pokestops, right? So what is Pikmin Bloom's Pokestops? It's these things, these flower bud things. Now, unlike Pokemon Go, you can't just sit on one of these and spin it every 5 minutes to fill up your whole bag. No, these flower buds can only be bloomed once per day, and they take quite a bit of work, actually. You need to plant at least 300 flowers in the radius around it so that it can bloom into a big flower, drop a bunch of fruit that you can send your Pikmin to pick up, and they'll convert that fruit into a nice chunk of nectar. There's some mechanics on how to manipulate what kind of flowers you get, but I'm not going to get into all that detail here. All you really need to know is that getting items in this game is pretty difficult, especially because you can only pop one of these flower buds for items once every 24 hours. And they're publicly shared, so if someone else comes along and pops all the flowers in your park before you get there, sorry, dude, no items for you. Like, it's bad. This is probably one of the worst parts of the game, honestly. And the only reason why you probably don't hear people complaining about it is because there aren't enough people playing it to where it's a problem. But yeah, theoretically, the more popular this game is in your area, the less resources there are to go around, which is just seems kind of messed up from a game design perspective. But let's play devil's advocate for a second and just assume they did this on purpose, right? Maybe they wanted to encourage people to get out early in the day, you know? Go explore other parts of your town that people don't go to very often because, you know, those buds probably aren't popped yet. But even if that's true, it just seems very unnecessarily brutal and like even weirdly competitive, which is not really the vibe of this game at all. Like, this is a very casual game, so I'm not sure what they were thinking with that. Like, just imagine going downtown to restock on items in Pokemon Go, and all the Pokestops are just used up. They're like, sorry, there's no more items left. There are other methods for getting nectar in the game, but they're also limited by some kind of daily cap. One of the main ones are these mushroom challenges that you unlock at a certain level. You have to send a certain amount of Pikmin to destroy a mushroom, and depending on how fast they do it, the more nectar you get as a reward, but you can only do this 3 times a day. And there's no way to increase that cap. Like, there's nothing in the shop that lets you raid more mushrooms. There's not like a mushroom raid pass. It's just 3 times a day for everybody. That's it. You can also use a detector to spawn extra fruit and seedlings in an area, but you only get to do this once per day. And if you want to do it more than that, you gotta buy them from the shop, of course. And then the last thing is through the weekly challenges. You can get rewarded with nectar, but they're not that easy, and you usually need a decent group of friends playing the game with you to finish these. So yeah, not the most reliable way to farm nectar. That's 80% of the game right there, is just harvesting nectar to get petals, to plant flowers, to bloom big flowers, to get more nectar. What is the end goal? Why are we doing any of this? What's at the center of that loop? And the answer to that is Pikmin costumes. There is a Pikmin Dex in this game, and it is the only reason why any of us are still playing it. You can get Pikmin in lots of cute little costumes, and they keep adding more to the game. And this is how they're getting people to dump tons of cash. You know, despite being its own game with unique features and gameplay, that's the one thing they had to borrow from Pokemon Go in order to get into your wallet. They had to make a Pikmin Dex. So I introduced to you the Pikmin decor system, and why it will probably be your downfall if you are a free-to-play player. And see, I'm very conflicted here because I gotta give them credit. Like, these costumes are pretty great. They all have unique animations. Just honestly, everything. I mean, I should probably take this time to just point out that everything in this game looks pretty great. Just look how far they let you zoom into these little guys. I mean, look at the texture work, right? Part of the reason why I still even bother opening this game at all, the fact that I'm a Pikmin fanboy aside, is that it just is very nice to look at. And if you can get a new decor Pikmin, it is very fun. But that's the problem. If you can get a new decor Pikmin. Aside from a few of the most common sets, getting new decor Pikmin is a pain in the ass. okay? And not even just difficult, but some decor types are impossible to get depending on where you live. Like if you don't happen to have a zoo in your town or a train station, like, sorry. Now, before I get too ahead of myself, every seedling you pick up in the game is marked with a tag that shows what decor type it is. There's no way to really guarantee which decor seedling you're spawning. Like, let's say you do go out of your way to travel to a bakery and you are standing inside the bakery and the detector shows the bakery decor tag and you hit the detector and it spawns like a roadside seedling a block away. Like, that is a very common experience. So consider the fact that most of the decor categories have 7 variations each. You can imagine about how long it'll take if you're a free-to-play player to randomly just hopefully spawn the decor you're missing every time you go out to, you know, a sweet shop or a library. And there's other tricks to spawning seedlings, like putting photos in your life log, but those only work once a day and you're still not really guaranteed anything. But essentially all you need to know as far as the gameplay is concerned is that decor Pikmin do mildly more damage to mushrooms. That's about it. Having a decor Pikmin doesn't do anything for you. There's no gameplay value to having like a full set of coffee shop Pikmin. There's no perks or buffs associated with just having a full team of little chefs. Even the roadside Pikmin with just those lame little stickers, even they have the same damage value as any other decor Pikmin. So it's purely an aesthetic feature, which is pretty common in free-to-play games. That's not shocking. And it's also not surprising that they make them very difficult to actually collect them all. Detectors are the incubators of Pikmin Bloom. Like, this is the item that people are probably spending the most amount of money on. It's probably how the game is making most of its money right now, because this is the only way to somewhat guarantee that you eventually get the decor you want. If you can just keep buying detectors and spamming scans, or you can play it like me and just over the course of 8 months, once a day, just cross your fingers and hope for the best. But I'm gonna pull back because we're not gonna talk about monetization yet. The next category is the AR features. Now, when I say AR features, I'm not just talking about like the fact that these games let you have like photo op modes, like Pokemon Go, you can take pictures of Pokemon. Pikmin Bloom has something similar. That's kind of a standard feature in these games. But no, I'm talking about features that either relate to the map or relate to having to use the camera directly for gameplay. So an example would be like the AR Plus mode in Pokemon Go, right? Where you can play like a slightly more complicated version of the catch screen with that like more advanced tracking in the bushes and trying to sneak up on your Pokemon. You know, that's them trying to make the game more immersive through AR tech, right? And Pikmin Bloom doesn't have that at all, really. Like, they have their photo op camera mode, which I gotta say is actually kind of cool because it works on a much smaller scale than the Pokemon Go camera. Pokemon are pretty big. You need a lot of space to kind of place one properly. But the Pikmin camera works on pretty much everything, and you can get really close to Pikmin for like macro style shots. They even added a cute little rumble feedback. If you get too close to a Pikmin and you bump into it, you'll actually feel that on your phone, which is just, you know, that's a nice little touch. I'll give him some brownie points for that. But other than that, there really aren't any like AR gameplay modes. Like, you can feed your Pikmin in that camera mode. I guess you can look at the big flower buds in AR mode now. But again, there's no gameplay reason to do that. So all the camera gimmicks aside, one of the things I actually do like about the game is how the Pikmin interact on the map itself. So when you send a Pikmin out on an expedition to a fruit that's like 2 miles away, this doesn't happen in some kind of menu, right? Like, they could have done this the easy way and just on the spot calculated how far they needed to go, give you a timer, and then you'll get your apple in 2 hours or whatever. No, your location in game is dynamic. So if you send Pikmin out 2 miles away and then you decide to start walking the other direction, those Pikmin are going to have to follow you wherever you've gone to finish their delivery. So theoretically, if you hopped in your car and time and space was no object, you could just infinitely outrun your poor Pikmin that are just trying to bring you back the apple you asked for. You monster. Why? Who would do that? Who would think that's funny? Not me. I would. But there's never any reason why you need to change your location after sending Pikmin out. I guess you could technically go out to meet your Pikmin. Say if you sent a Pikmin far away and you wanted him back sooner, you could actually move toward it to make its trip shorter. But yeah, unfortunately, the game never actually makes you use that dynamic relationship in any kind of fun way. Like, your Pikmin can't get stuck behind like a river or something. Maybe you thought like I did when I first started playing the game that like, oh, well, blue Pikmin are the only ones that can cross water, right? So if you're sending non-blue Pikmin, they're gonna have to like path find a way around bodies of water and it's gonna take longer, but no, all Pikmin can just go anywhere. There's no boundaries. It's kind of lame, but I also kind of understand why they didn't go to that level of detail. It just means that there's no real strategy to picking what Pikmin to send out to what expeditions. And I think that's where the game really fails to be like an immersive AR experience, because you don't ever have to consider your surroundings when picking what Pikmin you're going to use. So unfortunately, the only real strategy in the game is just knowing which Pikmin are the fastest. And the answer to that is the flying Pikmin. Just pick the flying Pikmin as often as possible, but only if you can get a full team. If you add another Pikmin that has to walk, that's going to slow down the entire group, like exponentially, which I appreciate that because that is actually how it works in the main series games. So that's nice. As for the other colors, the purple and rock Pikmin can carry 3 times their weight. The white Pikmin run the fastest on the ground, and the red, blue, and yellow Pikmin are all basically the same because you're not ever worried about fire, you're not worried about electricity, and you're not worried about water. So the main 3 Pikmin do basically nothing, which is like, okay, that's cool. The only time in the game you'll ever need to pick a specific color over another color is with the mushroom challenges. So if you're fighting a blue mushroom and you only send blue Pikmin, then you'll do a lot more damage and you'll get a better rating. But that's about it. But yeah, the only other AR feature I can think of is they did add some weather-based seedlings. So if it's raining, there's certain seedlings that can appear, even though rain doesn't render in game yet. So that's okay. There's no biomes in the game. There's no regionals. There's no reason to really travel outside of your city or go overseas to play the game. You're not going to get anything special unless that place has decor tags that you don't have in your hometown, maybe. But even then, like, if you do fly to Japan and get a bunch of seedlings over there and then come back, you're going to be sending your Pikmin to Japan to fetch all the items you found over there from the United States. And that's like a 30 to 40 day trip to send a Pikmin to walk across the Pacific Ocean, which again, I think that's actually kind of funny, but it's not like a good gameplay experience. I don't think. And the last note for this section, of course, is that Pikmin Bloom has the same problem Pokemon Go has, which is if you live in a city, you just have an advantage over other players. Like if you're playing in a city, you just have more Pokestops, more spawn points, and in Pikmin Bloom, you have way more flower buds to get nectar from, you have way more decor tag options, and players out in the country just don't get that. So if you live out in the middle of nowhere and you're trying to play Pikmin Bloom, expect a lot of forest Pikmin and roadside Pikmin. But they did recently add mountain Pikmin to the game, so there's something for the rural players, you know? Except for me, because I live in Florida, and what's a mountain? And now we've arrived at the final topic, probably the biggest one, and the one I have the most concerns about, the monetization model for Pikmin Bloom. If you play Pokemon Go hardcore, and you like collecting each and every variation of Pokemon, like I do, don't go into Pikmin Bloom thinking, oh, that should be pretty easy, right? There's only like 7 Pikmin colors, and that dex doesn't look that big. No, that decor dex is lying to you, like straight up. Like there's way more variations than they tell you about. If you commit to this, you will end up spending money, and I'll explain to you why. So let's start at the top level, right? Let's just look at the decor dex as is. If we count all these entries, there's about 200 different types of costumes. That's sitting pretty comfortably under the 300 storage limit that they give you for free when you start the game. But if you're a hardcore collector, oh, guess what? There are large and small variants of every Pikmin in the game. So if you want one of each of those, now we're looking at 600 Pikmin slots that you'll need. That's double the free storage they give you. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. No, of course it doesn't. Because you know those roadside Pikmin? You know, the ones with those little stickers with the letter? Oh, you want to keep one of each letter in the alphabet for each of the 7 colors of Pikmin? Oh, okay, sure, yeah, no. That's only an extra 182 slots just for roadside Pikmin. Oh, and I completely forgot there's a second tier. There's a rare tier of roadside Pikmin. It's a rare gold sticker. So if you want 26 of each letter of all 7 Pikmin colors for that, yeah, I'm so sorry. It's gonna be another 182 storage slots. And yes, that means you're gonna need about 364 slots just for all the roadside Pikmin in the game. Oh, I'm sorry, what's that? You want the big and small versions of both tiers of the roadside Pikmin? Yeah, that's gonna bring it up to 1,092 slots. So yeah, add that to the 600 plus decor variants we mentioned before, and we're already approaching about 2,000 Pikmin storage needed to keep like a full Pikmin dex. And keep in mind too, they're releasing new Pikmin decor like once every month or so. Sometimes that's in sets of 3, sometimes it's the full 7. Oh, and did I mention some of the Pikmin can be shiny? It's only 3. Yeah, don't worry. Just the restaurant Pikmin for now. I mean, they're gonna add more. Like that number is gonna go up. It's gonna hit 2,000. Real quick, this is Gabe from the future editing this video. Somehow I completely forgot that there's actually a third roadside sticker color. There's a blue sticker. So with 3 colors in mind, the total number would actually be 1,636 slots just for roadside Pikmin. So you add the base decor to that, and we're already well past 2,000 slots. Okay, whatever, wasn't gonna even make this edit until I got my first train ticket Pikmin from the new set. You know, the one that dynamically prints the name of the train station on the decor itself. And take a wild guess how many train stations there are in the entire world, because now each and every single one of those is technically part of the Pikmin dex. I'll give you a hint. It's 7 million. That's 7 million train stations that you're gonna need a Pikmin from in order to have a complete decor dex. Oh, and don't forget, there's 7 Pikmin colors, so the final calculation to determine how many slots you're going to need in Pikmin Bloom to have a complete decor dex is 7 million times 7, which is 49 million Pikmin slots. And look, maybe you're a hardcore player and you're hearing all of this and you're like, I've done all this before. I am patient. I can save up premium currency. I can easily hit 2,000 storage just by playing the game. No, you can't, because guess what? You can only buy Pikmin storage with real money. Everything in this shop you can buy with premium coins that you earn from planting flowers, but any of these storage upgrades, $2 each. And I will say, most of these other storage options are kind of pointless. Like, there's no reason to buy seedling storage, because unlike eggs in Pokemon Go, you can actually delete seeds you don't want. It's really only the Pikmin storage that I think will tempt people. You could make a case to increase your petal storage just so that you can plant flowers longer without having to check your phone, but even that's not really necessary. And just a quick side note, the flower planting mechanic has got to be one of the worst parts about this game. I mean, for how important it is, it's designed pretty badly. Like, it is so easy to forget to stop flower planting. The game has no warning system to say, hey, you're still planting flowers and you're not moving. So you'll find yourself breaking your streaks pretty often, or just dumping days worth of petals into the ground while you're sitting on your couch. It sucks. So what do you buy with this currency then if all the good upgrades are locked behind a paywall? Detectors, I guess? Since that's the only way you can roll for new decor Pikmin. Everything else is optional. Like the planting slots you get from leveling up, and you really, after a certain point, you don't need to be growing that many Pikmin. You get 2 planting slots by default, and that's been more than enough for me. And yeah, there's flower petals in the shop, but if you're buying those, I mean, you might as well be buying Pokeballs in Pokemon Go. Like, that's shameful. Like, you can earn those in game. Like, don't do that. But I'll put the info up on screen on how much you can earn per day and how many flowers that takes. Essentially, all you need to know is that getting your 50 coins a day in Pokemon Go is easy compared to Pikmin Bloom's 60 coins a day. I have never gotten that many. The amount of flowers you would have to plant to hit that cap is insane. And just because I was curious, I decided I would not spend a coin until I had saved up enough to buy the biggest bundle in the shop. And that took me about 3 to 4 months. So you can fully expect to make coins very slowly in this game. I also forgot to point out here that they have since overhauled the flower planting system as of a couple months ago. Back then you could only get 30 coins per day at a rate of 1 coin per 500 flowers planted. So the new system is basically twice as fast. And full transparency, I think I've spent about 10 bucks on this game total. None of that has been on coins. It's all just been storage upgrades, and I think I bought one of the starter packs early on. So that about covers everything I wanted to talk about in Pikmin Bloom. But now we can answer the question, what does any of this actually mean for Pokemon Go or for Niantic's future games? So since we just talked about monetization, let's start there. I think the fact that Pikmin Bloom is forcing you to pay real money to buy storage upgrades, like you cannot earn them in-game in any way, is basically Niantic saying that, oh man, we were way too generous with Pokemon Go. We could have made so much more money if we had just forced people to buy all those storage upgrades, because that is like the most coveted item. And to see them doing this in Pikmin Bloom has me worried about Pokemon Go 2 or whatever Pokemon Go turns into, because I don't know if you remember, but they did actually test shifting the monetization model of Pokemon Go. Thankfully, that failed miserably and people complained. So Pokemon Go is safe for now, but this is definitely a worrying trend. So what about the AR features in Pikmin Bloom? I think Niantic is pretty serious about wanting to make games that actually get people out and moving. I think the fact that they're moving toward this steps are your XP kind of model, basically designing game mechanics that require some kind of physical movement to acknowledge that, yeah, I am playing the game and I'm not in my car. Because the fact is, like, a lot of people do play Pokemon Go from their car, you know? As a passenger, of course, you wouldn't drive, right? You wouldn't drive your car and play Pokemon. I also think this stuff is kind of built to be anti-cheat mechanics. Like, yeah, sure, I can shake my phone for steps, but I can't really fake moving around for planting flowers, right? So that combination of things is sort of like an anti-spoofer measure to some extent. Part of the reason why I don't think Pikmin Bloom is gonna survive as long as Pokemon Go is the fact that there's really no value to be gained from cheaters or spoofers at all. Not that I support spoofing at all, I just know that there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of people that are disabled, people that just don't want to leave their house that do play Pokemon Go with a joystick. And those people are still spending money on the game and are paying customers, so they're contributing to the success of Pokemon Go just as much as everybody else, and they're not going to be there for Pikmin Bloom, especially if the game blocks that from happening, which again I don't have a problem with, because one of my favorite things about AR games is the fact that they've made me a little bit more active, and I like having that incentive to go out more. But yeah, I just think it's funny that cracking down on cheating basically means they're having to cut into their bottom line. And finally, is there anything about Pikmin Bloom's gameplay that I think might end up in Pokemon Go or might end up in future Niantic games? Not really. I mean, there's one thing, it's this. Just being able to drag to select, like this right here, luxurious feature. I feel barbaric having to tap each Pokemon to select them now after I got used to that. Other than that though, there's just not that much in Pikmin Bloom right now. I mean, I told you pretty much everything the game has to offer in this video. It's just very clearly designed for a different audience. It's designed to be more casual. But even now, I'm still holding out that maybe they'll add some extra features. Like, I just want to fight Bulborbs, man. I want to like dig up treasure. I want to do things with my Pikmin, you know, the things that feel like a Pikmin game. I'm not sure we'll ever get those just because their emphasis on flowers and this sort of peaceful vibe is so prominent. But honestly, the game is almost a year old now, and I think they've kind of found their content loop. Like, they're probably just going to keep putting out costume Pikmin. They're going to release new flowers every once in a while. They do community days where you can like get extra nectar and stuff like that. It's been on a pretty consistent loop, so I'm not holding my breath. A little disappointing, but I can still enjoy the game for what it is, right? It's basically just a nice to look at step counter with a Pikmin skin. And I almost wonder if Pikmin Bloom was designed to be sort of small and undercooked and kind of stay out of the way. Something that could be played with Pokemon Go and not step on its toes. And all of that's fine, honestly, because if I want the full Pikmin experience, I could just boot up the console games, right? That's what they're for. And I'm sure Pikmin 4 is coming, right? Like, they've got to be working on Pikmin 4, right? So to go back to the beginning and answer that question again, yes, Pikmin Bloom will probably die. It'll definitely die before Pokemon Go gets even close to dying. But maybe that's fine. Maybe that's perfect for a game all about the fleeting beauty of flowers, that we just won't have it forever. I don't know if it's worth saving. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say you have to go try it. If you watch this video, you can make up your own mind. It's probably too late at this point. I mean, Niantic's probably decided whether it's a success or not. They'll probably just ride this loop until people drop off. But for me, I'm going to continue to play it. I enjoy the little niche that it's carved out in my daily routine. It fits right in with what I do with Pokemon Go anyway. It's pretty minimal effort. And also I just like Pikmin. I don't know. I like looking at my Pikmin. They're just fun to look at. The game is very pretty, okay? It's a nice game to look at, and the Pikmin are bumbling and stupid, and we love that. I'm also going to be checking out other AR games as they come out. I think Peridot is right around the corner. That's the next one from Niantic. So if you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed me ranting about this very weird AR game genre that we've all been essentially beta testing for the past half decade, then definitely stay tuned, because we'll have more pretty soon. Until next time.